Okay, so today I'm actually discussing sleep and why it's such an issue for us cancer survivors, and also some natural strategies that can actually help you get that better sleep, better quality, fall asleep better, and then stay asleep during the night as well. So let's backtrack a little bit. Because one of the clear issues that a lot of cancer survivors and my patients have when they first come to me is that they complain about sleep issues. Now, sleep issues can actually happen during and even after treatments. There's one study actually to show that more than 50% of cancer survivors still have sleep issues, even up to almost a decade past their diagnosis, meaning that these sleep issues can actually persist over time. The good part is there's actually a lot of things that we can do that can help to regulate that sleep and get the rest that you actually need. And so we're going to be discussing that in the end. Why is it that cancer survivors actually have sleep issues? What could be contributing to that? We know that in general, sleep issues is sort of a global issue for everyone. Even people that don't necessarily have a cancer diagnosis or a cancer history may have sleep issues. But specifically for cancer survivors, there's a few things that could be propagating that. And one of the things being cancer treatments in general can actually cause sleep issues to happen. Secondarily, medications that you might have been on before or even during cancer treatments and post-cancer treatments might actually have impact on things like magnesium, GABA, melatonin, your hormones as well. And all of that, those medications could actually also be impacting your sleep. The other thing is also lifestyle changes. There might be some changes around your diet or exercise ability or other things that could also be propelling sort of this poor type of sleep, as well as things like stress. So we know that through diagnosis and even during treatments, there's a lot of stressful events that can happen, and that can actually lead to higher amounts of cortisol throughout a longer period of time that can also actually impact your sleep. And of course, a lot of my patients will also say, you know what, I had really stressful period even before my diagnosis. And again, that higher level of stress in the body for a prolonged period of time can often cause or lead to sleep issues. So there are many things, as you can see, that could potentially be igniting or causing some of these sleep issues to start and continue. Now, one of the key things that I think a lot of us don't necessarily know about or maybe don't learn enough about is actually the impact of hormones on your sleep. Hormones are actually very intricately related together, and we know that things like cortisol, which is a stress hormone, insulin, which is your blood sugar regulation hormone, melatonin, which is best known as your sleep hormone, but does many other things as well, thyroid hormones, as well as estrogen or low estrogen levels, which can come about if you're on certain medications that can lead to sort of more chemically induced menopause, or even you might have already gone through natural menopause, and that low estrogen again can impact your sleep. And all of these hormones don't actually work just individually by themselves. They actually work very tightly together. And so if there's an issue with one, oftentimes it will translate to issues with other hormones as well. Let's talk about 3 key hormones that I think we all should consider as cancer survivors, especially because they're impacted so much. Number 1 would be cortisol. So we know that cortisol is actually a stress hormone. The more stress we have and for a longer period of time, the more cortisol our body tends to release to help us get through those stressful moments. Now, what happens normally with cortisol is that it's supposed to be at its highest in the morning and during the daytime, and then decrease at nighttime to allow you to fall asleep. If that cortisol or that stress hormone doesn't actually decrease at nighttime, it actually can lead to difficulties in falling asleep. If the cortisol pops up too early in the middle of the night, say that 2 to 4 a.m. time frame, that often leads to waking you up in the middle of the night, where you might even have what I call sort of that monkey brain. You wake up and you've got all of these thoughts going on in your head, and you're planning out tomorrow and next year and so forth, because again, those high cortisol levels sort of get your brain going as well. We also know that in general, cortisol and melatonin are related or interrelated very closely together. What normally happens is melatonin is supposed to be at its lowest during the day, while cortisol is highest. And then melatonin will start to increase during the nighttime to allow for our bodies to go to bed on time, stay asleep, and have this sort of deep sleep. What can happen that can sort of disrupt that melatonin is that if there's any exposure to light at all, that crack in your door that you see and you get a little bit of that light coming in can actually impact the amount of melatonin that your body actually produces. Now, if that melatonin we can't produce as much as we normally need, it might lead to issues with falling asleep, but could also lead to issues with waking up too early in the middle of the night. That 2 to 4 a.m. again could be related either to high cortisol levels or to low melatonin levels that don't allow for your body to actually have that deeper rest. The other thing that could be impacting your sleep is actually insulin. So insulin is related to your blood sugar regulation abilities. What can happen is that if your blood sugars go down too low in the middle of the night, that can also cause your body to wake up, because it's basically waking up because it's hungry. It could cause interruption in your sleep time as well. So those 3 key hormones are actually really important in helping you not only get to bed, but stay asleep throughout the night and get that 7 to 8 hours of sleep that you absolutely need. Some key tips that I would say can be helpful. And we do know that strategies have to kind of be holistic in general. I find that most times it's not just one supplement or one strategy that can help. It's multiple things that we do throughout the day that can actually be additive onto each other to get you that better sleep. So tip number 1, first of all, even though you might be on medications that can cause sleep issues, it doesn't actually mean that it's unchangeable. In fact, oftentimes my patients will be on medications that might cause sleep issues, and we can still get or improve their sleep quality and our ability to fall asleep and stay asleep and so forth. So some of the things that you might want to consider around that might be things like, are these medications potentially causing nutrient deficiencies? Are there other things that these medications could sort of play a part in terms of sleep? What types of things might it be impacting? And understanding that probably takes like another healthcare professional to sort of help you through that, but that can also help bring in the right strategies for yourself. Number 2, we talked about cortisol, that stress hormone, being actually really critical in not allowing you to fall asleep properly and also waking you up way too early. So any activities that actually help your body de-stress throughout the day is actually really, really important and critical, because there has to be moments in the day that we actually have those cortisol levels decreasing. Now, de-stressing the body and trying to have sort of a nighttime routine where you can start bringing those cortisol levels down even more so right before bed can be really important. Things like relaxing teas, yoga, meditation, for example, hot baths, all of those things may be helpful in having this sort of nighttime routine that your body sort of associates with, yes, I do have to decrease those cortisol levels now, and yes, it's going to be time for sleep time for me, so I've got to get ready for that. That helps your body, because your body is actually normally going on an internal clock. There's an internal clock that also runs the activities that run internally for you, what types of hormones are released, for example, what types of things are happening in your body. And so just giving it some clues as to what it should be doing can be really helpful for your body to then get and set a normal schedule for itself. Number 3, as a tip, create a sleep-wake cycle. So what we talked about was how important cortisol was, right? Cortisol is going to be important. It's going to be high during the daytime. That's what actually gets you up and going throughout the day. And it's critical to have that level of cortisol, that higher cortisol during the day, but it's also critical that it sort of decreases at nighttime. And at night is when that melatonin pops in and starts rising. Now, one of the key things that we know can really impact this is actually exposure to light at nighttime is going to impact your melatonin levels. We know that not having enough light during the day can actually impact your cortisol levels. So one of the key aspects that you might want to start focusing on is ensuring that as soon as we wake up, we have a lot of natural light that we're exposed to. Usually windows that are, we start opening the windows, for example, here, turning on all the lights and so forth. At nighttime, it's the opposite, where we start decreasing the light exposures as much as possible. So what we do at my house is actually after dinner time is when I start to decrease the lighting in our house to set our brains to know that, okay, soon enough, it's going to be sleep time. And that signaling can actually help your body again with that sleep-wake cycle as well. We also know that there are certain things like blackout curtains, for example, or an eye mask that can also give you that dark environment that you absolutely need for that melatonin to actually be produced maximally in your own brain. Tip number 4 is to consider a digital detox. A digital detox mainly means that we're not going to be exposed to any lighting from anything like Kindles or iPads, nothing like a phone, for example, or even TV, at least 30 minutes to an hour or even more before your bedtime. The reason being that, again, that light signaling, specifically blue light signaling, can actually instigate your brain to think, okay, it's still daytime. I'm not going to make a ton of melatonin. I don't need a ton. And again, that cortisol to still remain sort of higher than we'd like it to. When we're able to do this digital detox, our body again is able to get that signaling that it needs from its external environment that it's nighttime soon and I need to get to bed. I need to make that melatonin. I need to decrease that cortisol level as well. Number 5, and the last tip that I had for you today, is all around supplements. I know I get asked about this a lot. There's certain considerations that I would make with supplements, the types of medications that you're on, certain medical history, for example, or conditions that you might have right now. We also want to consider things like other supplements that you might have as well. So there are many things that should be considered here, but certainly things that I found helpful for my patients are things like melatonin, magnesium, GABA, L-theanine, and other ones out there as well. Again, getting it assessed properly by someone like a naturopathic doctor can actually be most important, because we don't just want to take supplements whenever. We want to know exactly how much, the timing around it, and again, considerations for interactions of other medications that you're on. Certainly things like melatonin, especially, for example, we would want to be careful, and even GABA, for certain medications that you might already be on that are actually related to sleep medications. We know that sleep medications, if you're on them, it's something that you don't want to use for long term. We want to use it as short term as possible and start getting in sort of more lifestyle sort of changes, as well as potentially supporting that with more natural strategies if we can. What happens with medications, unfortunately, is like over time, you might have a dependency on them. We can also need higher dosages of these medications as well. And so the shortest amount possible with the lowest dose is actually the goal for medications. And then working on all the lifestyle stuff, decreasing that cortisol, increasing melatonin, helping to balance out some of those hormones as well, can actually really help you to get that better sleep, get to bed easily, and then stay asleep and get that rest that you need. I hope that was helpful to you. Please remember to subscribe to make sure that you get notified when the next video is posted. See you soon.